Hey, I'm B, and last week I decided to put my best foot forward and make the most sincere effort that I possibly could to learn how to draw as a beginner from scratch. I did a whole bunch of research, bought a bunch of cheap beginner supplies, and decided to really lean into it. As part of my learnings, I got a little obsessive and I started watching art videos excessively, still am. And I sort of quickly came to the realization that of all of the tutorials and Inktober walkthroughs and sketchbook tours that I've seen, I still hadn't really seen any videos from people showing their progress from absolute beginners. So I decided I would do just that. So now it's been a week and I have a week's worth of sketches and drawings and paintings and so on and so forth to show for it. So today and weekly from here on out, I'll be making videos to show my progress from a complete beginner to hopefully somebody who is competent and confident in their ability to transfer what's in their mind or in a reference onto a page. Yeah, that's basically it. I want to learn how to draw. So the video is going to be split into two halves. For the first half of the video, I'm going to be showing my sketchbook with the first week of sketches and drawings and paintings and whatever else is in there. And then at the end of the video, in the second half, I'll be showing a time lapse of myself doing a painting from the end of the week, plus a voiceover talking about my thoughts and experiences, some things I've learned, and my takeaways generally from the week. So before we jump into the sketchbook, I just wanted to talk a little bit about my process and how I actually plan to learn how to draw. Basically, I started drawing in earnest on the 18th. So on the 17th, I was doing a crazy amount of research, looking up what supplies I should have as a beginner and how to learn how to draw. As it turns out, probably to no one's surprise, there was no one article fits all where you just follow these 10 steps and by the end you'll know how to draw. Turns out it seems to be a lot more of a gradual and messy process than that. However, I did find a resource. It's free. It's called Drawbox. I'll link it somewhere. And basically it teaches you the fundamentals of drawing and artwork, how it works on a deeper level than just this is how you draw a cat or how to draw anime eyes or whatever. Like it's beyond just telling you what lines to put on the page, and it's more telling you how to figure that out for yourself, how to know it rather than to be shown it and then copying the result. Anyway, I decided to put my effort into that program. So on the 18th, I began with a lesson 0, and over the course of this past week, I completed all of lesson 1, and I'm currently on the 250 box challenge. Anyway, as part of the program, it's explicitly stated that you should be abiding by something called the 50% rule or the 50-50 rule or something like that. Basically, it just means that for half the time that you're learning to draw, you should be putting it into very structured, focused learning about the fundamentals and practicing and exercises and general knowledge building in a structured way. Then the other half of the time, you should be drawing for fun, just exploring and experiencing and just figuring things out intuitively and making mistakes and just kind of having more fun with it than focusing on one specific lesson plan or one specific exercise. So I really took that to heart, and as you'll see when we get to the sketchbook, I spend a lot of the time doing exercises from Drawbox, and I spend the, other half of the time trying other shit out. Watercolors, drawing, paint, anything, everything. So I really want to keep up with that. The reason I bring it up now is because so much of my sketchbook is actually filled with exercises from Drawbox that don't make sense and aren't relevant unless you too are doing Drawbox or are familiar with Drawbox. I just wanted to get that out of the way now because you'll see throughout the sketchbook that I'm not going to be focusing on commenting very much about the exercises that you're seeing, just because I feel like it's not really relevant unless you care about Drawbox and like you know what it is, because I'm not going to sit here and explain all the exercises and talk about exactly why I'm doing them. So the reason I bring that up is because you'll see in the sketchbook that there are a lot of exercises from Drawbox. And I don't really comment on them just because I don't think it's very relevant to the idea of just showing my progress over the course of a week. So I'm not going to really spend time in this video talking about specifically what the lessons and exercises are and are about, what the reasoning for existing is, and why exactly I'm doing them. However, in the second half, when we do the time lapse, I will talk about and comment more on what I've learned from Drawbox, because it is relevant to the overall point, which is that I'm trying to learn to draw. Drawbox is what I'm doing 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time, when I'm doing sketches and drawing and other forms of creating, I'm just doing independent research and I'm just looking at YouTube videos and trying to absorb everything like a sponge. I'm really trying to take everything in from a place of like, I know nothing. So anytime I do something new and like feel like I gain something out of it is time well spent. Okay, let's just jump into the sketchbook and I'll talk to you a little bit more at the end of the video. Okay, peace. This is my sketchbook. On page 1, I just have exercises from Drawbox. I kind of regret not leaving this page blank and then filling it out later with like a cool drawing, but c'est la vie. Yet more exercises. Yet more exercises. And here we land on my first drawing. This is day 1, first thing I've drawn in this sketchbook and in several years. Yeah, it doesn't look great. As you can see, there it is. This is the benchmark. This is where I'm starting out. I used acrylic paints for the skin and for the necklace that you can barely see, and I use watercolor for everything else. I use watercolor cakes to be specific, and yeah, I am a complete beginner. This is truly learning from day 1 from scratch. More exercises. I tried to do a color wheel up here in pencil crayon. It didn't look good. I also just am not very experienced with any medium, so I don't know why. This was kind of just a waste of time, to be honest, but whatever. So over here, this is on day 2, is the teddy bear drawing. I recognize it's pretty hard to see, so I'll probably put a picture somewhere on screen, but I drew a teddy bear with pencil, and then the background I did with pencil crayons. It turned out okay. I was actually quite pleased with it considering how the first drawing I did the day before went, so yeah. Down here I did a drawing of an avocado in watercolor pencils, and then I blended it out with water, and that is the result of that. This was on day 3. This was on the 20th, whenever that was. More exercises. Yet more exercises. Down here I tried to plan out my color scheme and figure out what I was doing for this here drawing that I did in watercolor pencils of a balloon tied to a chair. It is extremely faint. Even in person, you can barely see the chair. I was not happy with this drawing, especially because it took up a whole page and it took me a really long time to get the balloon and the chair just right, only to sort of, in my opinion, ruin it with the watercolor pencils just because I don't know what I'm doing. There's so much like white space and it just doesn't look anywhere near how I imagined it to look, but that's how you learn. And this was also on the 20th. More exercises. Up here I drew this cup of coffee. I was really happy with how it turned out. I used pencil crayons. As you can see, I'm trying to get into the habit of testing out values and whatnot, but I used pencil crayons to achieve this and I was so happy with it. It really does, to me, look like it is coming off the page a little bit. It's not perfect, but it's definitely the best thing I've ever drawn. Yet more exercises. And more. And more. Lots of practice. Okay, here I drew it. It's upside down. So let me just turn it around. I drew a pencil sketch of a hand sort of reaching up in a little pose. I was also very pleased with this. The thumb is kind of wonky, but I used some elements of composition that I've been picking up just like on YouTube videos and stuff, and it really helped me, especially if you compare the hand of this drawing to the hand of the first drawing that I did on day 1. You can see that I'm learning a lot in these first few days, and I'm really happy about that. Anyway, more exercises. Here I did a painting of tulips. Is that what they are? Okay, wow, I genuinely don't know what kind of flower this is, and you probably can't tell either because it didn't come out great. I just was trying again to work with watercolor pencils. This time I used way more pigment. Like I made sure that there was less white space and I was less precious with my shading. It turned out way better than the balloon chair fiasco, but I still wasn't very happy with it. More exercises. So here's the final drawing of week 1. The second half of the video will actually show me painting this in a time lapse, so that will be fun. But yeah, so progress wise, if you compare drawing on day 1 to drawing on day 7 or even on day 6, I think I've improved a lot in just 1 week, and I'll talk a little bit more about my thoughts and what I've learned in this first week on the time lapse, so I'll see you there. So I used this 10-pack of Artist's Loft basic watercolor paints. I have my reference there on the bottom left. I'm painting a sunset, so I used my color wheel abundantly in order to figure out what colors would go best. From there, I poured out a bunch of paints and used my color wheel as I tried to mix the paints to figure out exactly how to get the best hues and values from these basic 10 colors. So I mixed them up. After I mixed the color, like that blue there, I added water in order to dilute the paint and make it lighter, because I saw online that that's sort of how you're supposed to do it with watercolors rather than adding white to stuff. I don't know. But yeah. From there, I continued just mixing colors together and adding water until I was pretty confident in all of the values and hues and I was ready to get started. Those are my colors, and then from there, I jumped into it. Alright, so while Past B paints this sunset, I want to talk to you a little bit about week 1. I would categorize this week as having been one where I spent a lot of time familiarizing myself with just a lot of new concepts and new terminologies. In fact, just drink every time I say new, because coming from a place of zero experience, everything I had learned in week 1 was completely strange and foreign to me for the first 20 some odd years of my life. So I did a lot of reading and a lot of playing around and watching a bunch of videos, just enlightening myself to the process that is creating visual art. That painting I did on week 1, I actually used a reference, and the reference was a picture of Rihanna. So yeah, I realized in that moment that I had a long way to go, but I really just tried to enter into this coming from a place of sort of like zen and acceptance, where I'm just down for the ride, I'm down for the journey. I just want to learn new things and watch myself improve, which honestly I think I have been improving. Even in the last few days as I've been editing this video, I've made a few artworks that I'm already quite happy with, and it's actually a shame that I don't get to show certain things in this video, but you'll see it next week. Speaking of progress, I actually, after the painting that I did on day 1, I became low-key scared of acrylic paint. The way it made her skin look was just so bad, especially when compared to the watercolor paints, which I thought was done with a fair degree of success considering my lack of experience with watercolors. But yeah, you can see from my flip through of the week 1 that I was really sticking to watercolor pencils and trying to figure that out. And even this sunset that I'm doing now, I was only using watercolor from a tube. However, at the beginning of this week, week 2, I bit the bullet and I decided, you know what? I don't want to be scared of acrylics. I don't want to be scared of anything in this artwork learning journey. So I jumped right in. I painted something using acrylic paints. It was a bird. I think it turned out really good. I'm actually really proud of it, and I'm excited for you to see it in next week's video. So yeah, anyway, this week I had a few fears. In week 1, I did not want to use acrylic paint. I also didn't want to paint anything too big after the balloon chair incident, which I still kind of feel the same way. Like, the amount of effort even that took me to paint the bird, which ended up being like a quarter of a page in size, it took all day. So I don't want to put that much time, honestly, into making artworks that are going to be only in my sketchbook, especially because I want to be learning and improving more, and and I feel like if I'm very delicate and I take my time painting a few things, I'll get less out of if I sort of not rushed, but allowed myself to play around and quickly get through things. So instead of taking several hours to do one thing, I could do quite a few things in a day. I just feel like I'll improve faster that way, and I'll be able to learn different things and use more techniques. For example, with the bird painting, I learned a good deal about acrylic painting, but that day I also learned nothing else. And I want to do both, you know? I want to learn the fundamentals, and I also want to dig around in other stuff. But I don't want to burn myself out, and I don't want to have to spend hours in a day just completing one thing. It was too much. Even though I think the results are really beautiful, I'm not sure it was worth it. Okay, so let's talk about Drawbox. Week 1, I did lesson 1, and I got a small chunk of the way into the Draw 250 Boxes challenge. So I think it has been very helpful, honestly. The things that I learned that were the most beneficial to me from lesson 1 are probably line confidence, like drawing, for example, a circle or just some shape in a drawing in one smooth line rather than a bunch of chicken scratch lines, which is what I've done anytime I tried to draw anything in my life. So learning that kind of blew my mind a little bit, and I was like, wait, that's why art looks so good, is because it's confident and it takes a solid form. So learning about that was pretty helpful. Another thing that was really helpful was learning about perspective from the Drawbox exercises and lessons. The guy who made Drawbox Uncomfortable, he uses boxes typically to explain different aspects of perspective and of visualizing 3D space on a 2D medium like a sheet of paper. So a lot of the exercises were kind of geared towards that, geared towards figuring out how to maneuver something in space. And I'm about halfway into week 2 now, and I'm still not even halfway through the 250 boxes challenge. So yeah, there is a lot of practice when it comes to perspective, and it's helped me not necessarily directly like in a drawing. I guess in a way it more helps me understand drawing better and understand how to see something in space. So even though I've solely been using references, it still is lingering in the back of my mind, these ideas that have to do with 3D space, and I think it's honestly helping me better copy what I'm seeing in a reference onto the page without letting my eyes sort of deceive me into forcing the thing into a 2D perspective. It's hard to make sense of it, but it is helpful. Learning about perspective has been really helpful. Another thing that I learned about, not from Drawbox, but just from my own perusals, was the aspects of composition. I am new to it, and I haven't gotten to the more detailed explanations of it that I know are in future Drawbox lessons, but just from my research online and seeing how you can recreate something a lot more easily if you are able to use the aspects of composition in order to take the shape of something and break it down into simpler shapes. So a few places that I found composition really helped me make sense of things was, well, dang, honestly everything I've drawn. The teddy bear is a good example. Another one was the hand. Oh my goodness, the hand sketch that I did. Compare it to the one I did in the original painting on day 1. They're just worlds apart, and the reason for that is because even though I had a reference with the Rihanna painting, I didn't have any aspects of composition to rely on, so I was just trying to copy it exactly, and it just didn't work out, versus when I've used composition in order to like draw ellipses and draw basic shapes that the arm and hand are made up of. It came out looking a million times better. So composition is another amazing aspect that I've learned quite early on here, and I'm excited to learn more about and really grasp internally. Another thing I've learned a lot about in week 1 is watercolors, watercolor paint, watercolor pencils, watercolor cakes. I find watercolor to be, it's just really fun. It's a fun medium, especially with watercolor pencils. I feel like there's so much precision that you could possibly have, and then to have it still look like that watercolor fluid sort of look that watercolor paintings have. I just love it. I really enjoy it. And it also kind of stems from that fear I mentioned before of acrylic paints. I started to really lean into watercolors because I liked how translucent they were and how non-threatening they were compared to the thick unforgiving paint that is acrylic paint. So yeah, I learned a lot about watercolors mainly by doing and from videos and stuff. Like I learned about blending from light into dark and how best to layer watercolor pencils for a better blend and whatnot. I even learned also about pencil crayons. What are they called? Colored pencils. Color pencils. Yeah, as you can see from the coffee cup drawing that I showed in my sketchbook, I was really sort of getting the hang of color pencils, I think. And I'm going to continue to use them. I'm going to continue to use everything. The only thing to date that I haven't really dabbled in is pastels because, well, the only thing that I have in my possession that I haven't dabbled into yet is pastels. I don't have oil paint. I don't have a lot of things, but I have pastels. I haven't used them. They don't appeal to me, to be honest with you. They don't appeal to me whatsoever, but I'm gonna try them out anyway. I think the kind I have are the soft kind. No. I mean, they crumble. The kind that crumbles. It just, ugh. I have no desire to use them, but I'll see what I can find online and then maybe jump into a pastel drawing in the next couple days so I can show it in week 2. But yeah, other than that, I've used everything at least once for like a major drawing. For example, the pencil alone I used for the teddy bear as well as for the hand sketch, and then the pencil crayons like with the coffee cup, and then watercolors with most of the things in this sketchbook right now, and then acrylic paint from earlier this week, week 2. Alright, so that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope this video might have given you some sense of confidence or at least camaraderie in the struggle that is learning how to draw. I strongly believe that I will get better if I keep trying, and from beginner to beginner, if I can do it, you can do it too. I feel like I come into every drawing confused as heck, and I end it every drawing having learned a lot. So yeah, I'll keep at it. And I hope you join me for week 2's video. Thank you so much for watching once again. And if you like the video and you want to see more, go ahead and subscribe. And I'll see you next week. Okay, bye!